Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this celebration. Before you leave today. What you might not know is that 50 years ago, Yes was launched by the Rotary Club of Toronto, with one staff person consisting of a director and a part-time secretary. And look at where Yes is now. I first heard about Yes more than 35 years ago from my father, who was an active member of the Rotary Club of Toronto. I became a donor to Yes shortly thereafter and have continued to this day. As an active Rotarian and corporate lawyer, I have had the privilege of sitting on the board of Yes for more than 7 years, just finishing my 2-year term as chair of the board. And I truly love being involved with such a tremendous organization. I would like to begin our celebration by introducing you to Dominique Grant, who will sing the national anthem. I'm out of order here. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dominique while you stand. Called Inspirational by the Toronto Star, Dominique Grant is a singer, songwriter, and award-winning entrepreneur who, after beginning her journey in Yes's Biz Start program, has gone on to receive invitations to perform and speak on over half of the continents around the world. The recent release of Dominique's debut EP album called Playhouse, challenging the way we understand life in urban cities for emerging generations, has led to sold-out TEDx talks, performances for the United Nations, and led to Dominique being selected as an official ambassador for the Toronto 2015 Pan Am Games, where she represented 47 countries in 3 official languages for Canada's largest sporting games. Dominique continues to be a Biz Start mentor, and today will be performing the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, Dominique.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command, car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une des propres, des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Thank you.
Please have a seat. Our MC is tied up at Queen's Park and will be here in just a few moments. Oh, he's here, look at that. I go back onto script. Hi. It is my great pleasure to introduce our Master of Ceremonies for today. Colin DeMello is a first-generation Canadian, having moved to Toronto along with his family from Kuwait in 1998. It was this move that allowed him to pursue a love of journalism, one that sparked and shaped after the events of the First Gulf War. He started his career at the age of 19 in Moncton, New Brunswick, working as a reporter anchor at News 91.9. In 2007, he moved back to Toronto to work for 680 News, first as an anchor and eventually as the City Hall reporter, where he played a key role in award-winning coverage. He then went on to join CTV News and was nominated for a Premier's Award in 2013. Colin was named Queen's Park Bureau Chief in the summer of 2018. He is passionate about educating Canadians through news, and I've had the privilege of working with him for the last 5 years when he volunteered as a Master of Ceremonies for the Rotary Club of Toronto West. I am thrilled that Colin is able to join us today for this wonderful celebration. Please welcome our Master of Ceremonies for today, Colin DeMelo.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Patty, and I hope everyone is feeling well this afternoon. Just a round of applause. How's everyone doing today? As Patty did know, literally 5 minutes ago, I was up at the Pink Palace. After a question period, there's something called scrums, which is very hotly anticipated, especially with this new government, because it is our only opportunity to go and question the ministers, sometimes all day, sometimes all week, on some of the big topics of the day. And of course, last night, the Progressive Conservatives had said that the Labour Minister, her riding office in the Kawartha Lakes was broken into after the government repealed Bill 148. Their temperature is very hot, and as a result, we're all crammed into these little scrums. So if you see little beads of sweat, that's most likely what it's from. I'm honored to be your MC this afternoon. I want to take a few minutes to explain exactly why we are all here today. This year marks Yes's 50 years of experience in delivering youth employment, job readiness, entrepreneurship, and empowerment programs for hundreds of thousands of youth, especially at-risk and disadvantaged youth. And I think that's something that deserves a round of applause. And so today is all about celebrating and reflecting on the positive impact Yes has been making in our community. Up to 84% of youth that leave our program are employed, they are trained, they are starting their own businesses, or they are returning to school. This is a result of a collective effort made possible thanks to partners, fundraisers, employees, youth, volunteers, and every one of you who are here today. So today we want to recognize milestones achieved by some of our youth, and we will have them up here to share some stories which will give us a kind of a glimpse of the impact that Yes has been making over these last 5 decades. We also have some great speeches to look forward to from the Right Honorable Brian Mulroney. If you've never watched him give a speech, I haven't had the opportunity to do too many times, but once or twice I was in stitches. He is such a great orator. He is such a great storyteller. And I have the opportunity now, Mr. Mulroney, to interview your daughter. I kind of also work with your son, which I think is the more important part. But first, we want to turn your attention to the screens for a video from Yes. Please pay attention to the screens on either side of the stage. Thank you to Navdeep Bains for that message. I also want to read a special congratulatory message from Adam Vaughan. As Member of Parliament, it reads, for Spadina Fort York, it is my pleasure to welcome attendees, organizers, and volunteers to the 50th anniversary celebration for Yes. Adam Vaughan writes, I congratulate you on the great strengths and the achievements of your organization, and I look forward to seeing your continuing efforts in assisting Toronto's youth. For the past 50 years, Yes has been and continues to be a champion in delivering award-winning youth employment programs through career counseling and job placements. Mr. Vaughan continues to write that thanks to Yes resources, it is gratifying to see, he says, so many youth leave the organization equipped with information and knowledge so that they can either start their own business or confidently enter the workforce with the skills that they have developed. Congratulations, he writes, in achieving this significant milestone, and Adam Vaughan wants to extend his sincerest thanks to everyone who is involved and to all of those who continue tirelessly to secure the future of the next generation. That's a message from Adam Vaughan, the Member of Parliament. She's also part of the Rogers Women's Network National Leadership Team. Previous to that, Susie worked at the Global Trade Association for the mobile phone industry. Oh, maybe you will take some complaints. Where, among other things, Susie led policy development around the role of mobile technology in the lives of young people. Susie has worked in Canada, Europe, and globally. She is committed to giving back to her community and as a former board member of a Scottish-based charitable trust focused on youth and the elderly. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Susie Hendry.
Colin, thank you for that kind introduction. And you gave me a big promotion by calling me the Chief Privacy Officer. I work for the Chief Privacy Officer. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we take the opportunity to celebrate 50 years of Youth Employment Services and recognize its many supporters. It's my privilege to be part of this great organization. I first became involved with YES over 5 years ago when I'd recently moved back to Toronto and was looking to engage with my local community. I was drawn to the work of YES because it serves a constituency that I believe passionately in, young people. And YES serves them in such a comprehensive and meaningful way by helping young people develop the skills to find employment. As the past chair of the Development Committee and the current chair of the board, I've had the opportunity to work with many of our amazing partners who ensure YES can continue to support the thousands of youth it does annually. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Citi and the Citi Foundation, who are presenting sponsor for today's event. We're delighted to have some representatives from Citi here at our event today. I would also like to recognize BMO, who are today's empowerment sponsor, and our table sponsors, State Street and Rogers. Thank you for helping us celebrate 50 years of impact in our community. YES has been able to positively impact the lives of so many thanks to the countless supporters who give their time, talent, and financial support to our organization. We are so grateful for the generosity and commitment of the corporations, foundations, and individuals, as well as our government funders, who have helped and continue to help tackle the issue of youth unemployment. Many of the partners who have made the work of YES possible are here in the room today. And there's one phrase in my vocabulary that can never be said enough. Thank you so much. May I ask that all our partners and supporters take a stand so we can recognize your ongoing commitment and support. Thank you very much and enjoy your lunch.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's once again hear it for Susie Hendry, the now CEO of Rogers, I believe. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can turn your attention to the screens here for a Say Yes to Yes video. Margaret, thank you for your 30 years of service to YES. And Sinead McCarty, the other Vice President of Development, is also here, HR and Programs, who has close to 20 years of service and has also helped ensure that YES and youth success with YES is ongoing. Please help me welcome both Sinead and Margaret to the stage.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I'm so honoured to now present the YES Youth Achievement Awards. A special thanks to the Olsen Foundation for sponsoring these awards. YES serves thousands of youth every year through 20 different programs and services. Our mission states that we believe employment is empowerment and the cornerstone of safe and healthy communities. Never before has that mission been so critically important. With youth unemployment persistently high, increases in youth experiencing mental health issues, increasing crime rates, as well as automation and augmentation on the horizon, the future could look dim. However, we know that there's an aging labour force and lower birth rates in Canada. I feel we're at a critical juncture and youth employment services is even more essential today. We have chosen today to honour just 3 of the amazing young people that we serve every day. Each young person is going to receive $1,000 and continued mentorship and support from Youth Employment Services. So I'd like you to welcome the young people to the stage, and as well as some of the YES staff, their mentors. And we have Jamila, Kofi, Gabriella, Gianluca, Lauren, and Gabriella. Come on up. And Jennifer. So you guys can take a seat. We have 3 awards. We have the Employment Award, the Empowerment Award, and the Entrepreneurship Award. And they're 3 of the different types of themes of programs that we serve. First up, I'd like to introduce you to Jamila. Jamila Mensah grew up in the Lawrence Heights community in Toronto and comes from a Guyanese and Ghanaian background. She's the youngest of 3 siblings. She's a single mom of 3 beautiful children, and she participated in our Biz Start program. She's had great success and is now a successful entrepreneur. Please welcome me in having her tell her story. Thank you.
Good morning, or it's afternoon now, good afternoon. I would like to say thank you to YES for this opportunity. In my wildest dreams, I don't think I could have anticipated this moment, so it's amazing to be here today. I did grow up in the Lawrence Heights community, and if you are familiar with the Lawrence Heights community, there is poverty, drugs, and a lot of death that has come out of there. And that was a legacy that was predisposed to many of us who live there. Fortunately, my parents decided to move out of there, and we relocated to Mississauga, where they wanted to give us a better life. My dad had moved to New York pre-9/11, and my mother had worked 2 and 3 jobs just to get us by. And during that time, a lot of things happened, and unfortunately, my dad passed away due to complications of ALS, and that truly sent me into a hard place in my life. I struggled for many years trying to cope with that, as well as trying to find my place in this world and find what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do long term. Prior to joining YES, I did have children, I did attend school, and I became a paralegal. In trying to work in the workforce, I decided that that necessarily wasn't the path I wanted to do, and I decided to start my own business. So fast forward 12 years later, I landed on YES. As a millennial, we are addicted to social media, and by chance, I saw a post that said there was a program called Biz Start, and I literally made it in last minute registering for that program. And from there, I was able to obtain resources and take advantage of many opportunities that have now helped me to start and establish my own paralegal law firm. One of my favorite poems is Our Deepest Fear by Marianne Williamson. In the poem, she writes, "Who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world." And I understand what that means wholeheartedly because of YES. I, for many years, struggled with owning what I wanted to do, owning what I wanted to be. And with them, I was able to cultivate that and also work to establishing my own firm. I've always been a risk taker, so to speak, but I've also been kind of shy in how I approach that. I did lack resources prior to coming to YES, and they were able to give us that. BizStart was able to provide me with many opportunities and many meaningful connections, both internally and externally, that have manifested into strong relationships going forward. I was able to, with the stipend that was afforded to us through the program, start my business and also keep it afloat since completing the program. In short, resources like YES, and specifically the BizStart program, are fundamental to the city and to the neighboring ones. Everyone is not going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, and that is okay. Programs like YES, the one I was fortunate to be a part of, BizStart, help offer something to those who want to try something different. Lastly, actually, before that, I would like to say a special thank you to my mother, who is in the room today. Thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for giving me some of your best qualities, your resilience, and your strength to see the best in every situation. This award I dedicate to you. Lastly, it also takes strong leaders and advocates, and I'm truly grateful for the ones I had in the BidStar program, Kofi and Umi, for encouraging me and also helping me to hone in on some of my great qualities. I also want to thank the sponsors and the supporters of Yes, and those who, contribute to helping these type of programs stay afloat. You are all amazing, and I thank you for your contributing and investing in the youth. Your contributions are necessary, and the next Oprah, Bill Gates, and Jamila Mensah depends on it. Thank you again for this opportunity and allowing a dreamer like myself to become a creator. Because of all of you, I am able to triumph, and I'm also able to give my kids a legacy they can be proud of. And one more thing, say yes to yes. Thank you.
That was very inspiring. Thank you so much. Next up, we'd like to honor Gianluca Primucci. Gianluca came to our Lighthouse program, and he was struggling with finding work, and he's going to share his wonderful story with you. And sitting with Gianluca is his wonderful career counselor, Gabriella. So come on up and tell your story.
Hello, my name is Gianluca. Hello, my name is Gianluca Primucci, and let me begin by saying congratulations to Youth Employment Services for reaching its 50th anniversary. Also, I would like to thank Yes and the Lighthouse Project for nominating me for the Employment Award. This afternoon, I would like to share with you all my experiences with Yes and how they've helped me in both getting work and in realizing my own capabilities. To do that, I will talk a bit about my past with regards to my mental health and employment challenges, working with my career counselor, Gabriella, who has helped and supported me, and all the things I've learned about myself along the way. When I graduated school in 2016, I successfully landed a job in my field, a position which should have been my dream job. Instead, it led to a dark period of time and put my mental health in jeopardy, my friends and family through a very difficult time period. When the job would become more demanding, I struggled with the pressure and with speaking to my employer about how I was feeling. The stress at work impacted both my personal life as well as my energy and eating habits. I was tired, unhealthy, stressed, and unable to keep a schedule. This would make work even more difficult, as I would come in late, leave shifts early, and struggle in between. The less healthy I got, the less I was able to cope. I was burnt out and overwhelmed to the point I could no longer function. I had to quit my job and started isolating myself from friends and family, even to the point of running away multiple times. My mental health continued to worsen, and I experienced a deep episode of psychosis. In a moment of clarity, I realized I wasn't living reality. I wanted to take steps to get the help I needed to return to a state of wellness. My first step was relying on and trusting my family. At the urgence of my parents and life coach, I sought medical treatment and began taking different medications. After leaving the hospital, I moved into 1425 Bayview, a private residential setting which supports young adults facing mental health challenges to transition to independent living while learning and incorporating life skills. I began to rebuild my skills by doing volunteer work at a local food bank and spending time focusing on my physical health as well as fitness goals. With these important steps in place, I began to think about employment. Employment has always been a critical part of my mental health. When I was doing well and in a structured environment, work has always been a contributing factor to my well-being. I was referred to the Lighthouse Project as Yes, a program intended to assist with employment support for those who identify with mental health issues. Once in the program, we discussed that for me, recovery means getting to a place of wellness that I felt comfortable to work and where work was a success. They say the job hunt is hard, and everyone who's been down that road would agree. What made it easier was with the support of Yes, who have helped me felt empowered and confident. I worked collaboratively with Gabriella to discuss my long-term goals and the healthiest steps we could take towards them. This process was a unique experience for me because in the past I've always tried to get a job, not necessarily the right job for me, with my diagnosis, recovery, and career objectives in mind. Through the program, I attended workshops, mock interviews, and ones with managers at major corporations who partnered with Yes. I received one-on-one support by phone or in person and was connected to employers directly. I also worked with my support network to think about what my schedule should look like, how many hours I was capable of, what was the healthiest for me, and important questions for my employer. The more I focused on what I needed to try, the more I was aware of how important it was to build up to my long-term goals. This even involved me turning down some offered position as I considered the healthiest choice for me. One of the interviews I attended through Yes was at Kitchen Stuff Plus. I was offered and accepted the position and have been working there successfully for the past 3 months in a permanent role. After receiving the job, I worked with my counselor to discuss factors such as disclosure accommodations, rights and responsibilities, and how to manage what time works, setting limits that were good for my health. This job has been a job that not only taught me a lot about the workforce, but about my own ability to self-advocate. In the past, if I was uncertain at work, I would either quit out of anxiousness or say nothing and end up burning myself out. My newfound confidence and support from Lighthouse, I was able to explore new opportunities while knowing I could seek accommodations to succeed at work. My personal growth over the last year, as well as working with ES, has allowed me to decrease my anxiety with routine things, also allowed me to step back and not hyper-focus and do things to the point of exhaustion. Working with ES has afforded me balance in my life and work. The experience has taught me that I'm capable of being hardworking without overworking, perseverance while setting limits, and maintaining and using support while showing personal initiative and self-advocacy. I look forward to continuing my work at Kitchen Stuff Plus, while also looking forward to the long-term success of my physical health and mental health, and creating a successful career in my chosen field as a graphic designer. And yes, say yes to yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gianluca. That was so inspiring, and thanks very much to Gabrielle, his career counsellor at Yes. I thought that was wonderful. Next up, we have our last but not least young person is Lauren. Lauren completed our Lighthouse programme. Lauren is deaf, and so Jennifer, her career counsellor, will be speaking while Lauren is signing. And you should know that in the deaf community, this replaces clapping. So welcome, Lauren and Jennifer, please. Thank you.
Job search can be difficult for everyone, and as a newcomer with a disability, I faced even more obstacles in my job search. I am deaf, which makes some tasks very difficult or impossible. For example, I have trouble cold calling or communicating with employers, and before joining Yes, I did not know how to write a formal business email for employment in the style used in Canada. I also struggled with how to make a resume for Canadian employers, search for a job effectively, and use social media such as LinkedIn, and I did not understand why it was so different here. I wanted to work, but I did not know where or how to start. I had been applying online and sending out numerous resumes, but I did not get a response from any employers. I was getting very frustrated and disappointed and knew I needed to do something different, but I did not know what. While struggling to find a job, I found out about Yes through a friend. He said Yes helped him to get a job, and he told me that Yes was amazing and full of opportunities. He was right. I joined the Yes Ability program at Yes, and they guided and helped me to find a job at my own pace in a field I was interested in. I'm very thankful to my friend for letting me know about Yes. The Yes team provided me with great support through face-to-face coaching and introduced me to the Accenture online workshops, which gave me a good understanding of Canadian work culture and helped me to improve my work skills. The Yes staff helped me with all aspects of job search, including tailoring my resume to specific job postings, letting me know about different job opportunities, contacting employers for me, and preparing me for job interviews. We spent many days customizing my resume, looking at job leads, carefully examining job descriptions, gathering information about employers, and creating my social media presence on LinkedIn. They patiently guided me through the whole job search process step by step. As I was going through this process, I became more positive, assertive, and confident. I have improved my job search skills and learned how to market myself in Canada. All this empowered me and opened the door for me to start my career. I felt encouraged and felt that I had the tools to find new opportunities. Then, Yes team helped me to find a paralegal firm that was willing to interview me about having me work as a legal and bookkeeping assistant. I was afraid at first, since legal matters are difficult and I had no experience in that field. However, the Yes team and my deaf friend encouraged me, so I went for the interview and was hired. Once I started working, I felt interested, passionate, and discovered I love to work as a legal assistant. With my new confidence and job search skills, I then found a second job on my own. Now I feel positive when looking for a job, and I am patient with myself, my life, and my goals. Currently, while still employed, I am studying at Georgia Brown College, and I am giving all my effort to get a certificate in the Canadian Institute of Bookkeeping program. I feel so grateful. There are no words to thank Yes enough for welcoming me and for all their wonderful support. From the bottom of my heart, I thank the Yes staff for being so amazing and positive and supportive through the whole process. When I needed help, they embraced me and gave me confidence and empowered me to make my dreams come true. I will always keep in my mind this chapter of my life when I take on new challenges. Thank you for allowing me to achieve this level of personal self-development. I am now successful. I am happy that all Yes members work so enthusiastically, put their own heart into helping others, and always support the clients. Thank you so much. I will keep this award in my heart and memories for a long time. I really appreciate that some of the staff took the time to learn a little signing. Okay. Oh, and wait.
Thank you all so much. I hope you enjoyed listening to those young people. It's very inspiring. And back to you, Colin. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's once again hear it for all of our award recipients. And it is key, we all know, that whenever you win an award, you always thank your mom. No matter what, you always thank your mom, right? And you're the most proud mom in here, I'm sure. She gives us all the queen wave. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Timothy Lang, Yes President and CEO. Tim has led Yes for 3 years, and in that time, he has helped double the revenues. This means Yes has been able to hire more staff, which means Yes has been able to help thousands more youth each year. From around 8,000 when he started to over 12,000 youth served each and every year. Tim has private sector leadership background with multinationals like Xerox, Bell, and Just Energy, and then worked with St. FX University as vice president, producing record fundraising and reputational growth through his innovative branding and communication strategies. Tim has worked closely with his fellow alumni, who he's sitting right beside, the Right Honorable Brian Mulroney, to raise over $70 million for the Mulroney Institute for Government. Tim sits on several nonprofit boards and was awarded the Queen's Jubilee Medal for outstanding contributions to the community. Yes is thrilled to have Tim as its president, and Tim is, of course, very passionate about the Yes team and the incredible life-changing work that Yes does. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Lang.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Colin, and thank you so much for all of you being here. As said, Yes has had such an incredible impact on the hundreds of thousands of lives that we have directly worked with, but the millions indirectly, and I want to speak to that in a moment. Rest assured, I will be brief. We want to get to our keynote speaker, who's really one of the great speakers in the world today. In honor of my stepfather, Donald MacDonald, I'll tell a story he told about long speeches. He said in pre-Confederation days, when John A. Macdonald was not even Prime Minister, they still had public hangings, and one day there was a public hanging, and they asked the man if he had any last words, and he said, "No, I have nothing to say." So MacDonald, never wanting to pass up an opportunity, said, "Can I say a few words in his place?" And he asked, the executioner asked the convicted man, and he said, "No, I don't mind if he speaks, but I've heard him speak. And can you hang me first?" So lest you prefer certain death over my speech, I'll try to be brief. But I did want to thank so many of you here today, the donors, the volunteers, the corporations, government. You know, for every dollar of funding given to Yes, it actually returns 3 to the economy in terms of wages, tax revenues, a reduction on social services. So the impact is truly profound and really helps build a safer, stronger community. But I'd also like to thank some of the dignitaries who are here today. We've got, of course, the Right Honorable Brian Mulroney. We have former Premier Mike Harris. We've got former Premier and good friend David Peterson. We've got former Police Chief Julian Fantino and Cabinet Minister. We've got another good friend, Jim Peterson, Cabinet Minister during the Chrétien Martin days. And we have former Cabinet Minister Peter MacKay, who I worked closely with. He was my MP when I was at St. FX, and he also helped secure funds for youth and for students, which will have an impact for generations. So to him, I'd say, you know, you helped secure millions of dollars, and I'm giving you a free lunch, so we're even. So I appreciate that. But I am, again, so grateful. Yes has been around for 50 years, and it is one of those unsung heroes in the Canadian landscape. You've heard some of the stories, and everyone's first job is so important. Youth, especially who come from backgrounds some of us can't even imagine, have so much potential and just need sometimes, as I said, a hand up, not a hand out. And Yes has been there to provide that. I know, as an aside, we talk about our first job and how it's impacted us. I remember my first job, I was delivering papers for the Ottawa Journal, went out of business. Moved to Winnipeg, worked for the Winnipeg Tribune, it went out of business. So after school, I was determined to join a multinational corporation, billion-dollar corporation, so I joined Nortel. And no, I'm just kidding. I made up that last part. I don't want my staff to think, oh, great, now he's bringing us down. But I am proud to say that we have doubled in size, which means more staff, which means thousands of more youth that we can serve each year. And again, that first job is about the sense of self-worth and dignity. It's just so important in an individual's life. And we've seen that firsthand. We've served and we've heard so many stories. I know there was one woman who was a Syrian refugee who literally a year earlier, when I was speaking to her, talking to me about being in Aleppo and having her family and friends dying around her. And now she's in Canada, excited about a prosperous, safe country, and now with her first job. Another story, a donor was in, and he called us back and said, you know, I was telling my team about Yes, and when my team sort of left, you know, he was saying what a wonderful organization it is. One woman stayed behind, and she said, you know, I'm a product of Yes. I was 17, had a child, and I was homeless. And he couldn't believe it, because now she managed multi-million-dollar budgets, a large team, and so he saw firsthand the impact that Yes has. So I'm so delighted that all of you could be here, because Canada is a great nation, maybe the greatest of nations. And it's for a lot of reasons. We're tolerant, we're diverse, we're inclusive, we're peaceful. But I think, chief among that is we're obviously a prosperous nation. We've got a strong, and we need a strong market economy that drives competition and innovation, which leads to better customer service and quality of life for everyone. But it also means when companies flourish, it means there's employment. And again, we've got many of the employers in this room today who have taken a chance in some cases with our young people and have seen how any young person, if given the chance, can flourish. So many of you are here. One of my good friend, Martin Rochon's here. He's president of RBC, that's Rochon Building Corp. But we know that. But that's balanced with that prosperous economy with that social safety net. And that's what makes Canada great. Chief among that is, of course, our healthcare system. But Yes is one of those unsung heroes behind the scenes that helps, create that stronger fabric. When by no fault of their own, be it farmers if there's a drought, there's a social safety net to help them weather the storm, or be it young people when there's a downturn in the economy. Yes, and organizations like ours, and we're the leader in Canada, one of the leaders in the world. We've trained organizations like ours across the country and around the world that keep coming to us. But we help people really realize their potential. There's young people that, sometimes are even at the bottom when we say that's maybe where you are, but that's not who you are. And my staff, many of whom are here today, an incredible group of people who deal directly with our young people, and the results are, again, a safer, stronger society. So again, I can't thank you enough because the impact is considerable. So thank you for that. I just want to very quickly say something about our keynote speaker, because it's fitting that he's here today, because he is a great example for our young people and for leaders. He'll be properly introduced by Jamie O'Reilly, who is the vice chair of the board of directors at Yes, by coincidence, a fellow St. FX grad. Jamie played football there, and all I know about that is he signed a contract with the Toronto Argonauts. He just couldn't get them to sign it. But he'll properly introduce him in a moment. But unbeknownst to many, Brian Mulroney comes from humble beginnings. He had to work and claw his way up to now the top post in the land. He had people who said, no, you can't do it, like John Turner. He had setbacks, but he showed great resolve. And that's exactly what our team teaches our young people. And I'm honored that he could be here today to share some of his thoughts because of the example he is, not only for our young people on how to, with passion and purpose, just do great things, but also from a leadership perspective. Obviously, Canada is trillions of dollars richer because of free trade and a fair tax system. The air we breathe is better because of environmental policy, and the world is better because of his international policy and helping to push for the freedom of Nelson Mandela and so on. But above all, he served Canada like many of our dignitaries. And that brings me back to my final thanks of the night is to my staff. They serve in such an amazing and honorable way. As a leader, part of your role is to inspire people to go to work and do their job well every day. And from that perspective, my team, they don't need much inspiration. They are so passionate about what they do, and I'm just so honored to work with them. They are truly great, and I use that term with purpose because I think of Martin Luther King when he said, if you want to be famous, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. But recognize that those that are truly great among us are those who serve. And by that definition, you don't need a PhD in physics. You don't need to know about thermodynamics. You don't need to know about Aristotle and Plato. You just need a heart so full of grace. And so I'm so honored to have my staff here today, many of you that have supported Yes, and know that we will continue with your help and support to change so many lives going into the future. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you.
Thank you once again to Tim Lang. And now the introduction before the introduction. It is my pleasure to introduce our presenting sponsor, Jamie O'Reilly from City Canada. Jamie serves as a managing director of Corporate Solutions Group within City Markets and Security Services Division in North America. As part of City Canada's leadership team, Jamie sits on the Business Operating Committee, the Community Development Advisory Council, the Mentorship Advisory Committee, and the Campus Recruitment Advisory Council, and as a past member of the Employment Equity Committee as well. Jamie is an active community member with a focus on youth empowerment. He is the vice chair of the board of directors of YES, a City Foundation community partner. He also mentors young professionals internally through City's mentorship programs and externally through the CFA Society of Toronto. Jamie holds an undergraduate degree from St. FX University, as mentioned, where he graduated with distinction and was honored as an academic all-Canadian athlete, just not good enough for the CFL. He completed his university education with an MBA from St. Mary's University and currently holds the CFA designation. Jamie, his wife, and 3 children all live in Toronto. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Jamie O'Reilly.
Thank you, Colin, for the warm introduction. Distinguished guests, colleagues, supporters, and YES community. As mentioned, my name is Jamie O'Reilly. I'm a managing director at City Canada and vice chair of the Youth Employment Services Board of Directors. For the past several years, City has been pleased to forge a partnership with YES that sees us provide financial support to the YES On Demand program via City Foundation's Pathways to Progress initiative. YES On Demand has assisted in further broadening the impact of this great organization, with a goal of extending its reach through the use of online technology across the country. We're also pleased to be able to provide ongoing volunteer support and partnership on initiatives such as our City Skills Marathon, where our city people work alongside the talented team at YES to further address their strategic challenges and enable the organization to continue forward. As part of this very special occasion for YES, it is my honor today to introduce our guest speaker, the 18th Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Brian Mulroney. In September 1984, Brian Mulroney led the Progressive Conservative Party to the largest victory in Canadian history, becoming its 18th Prime Minister. He was re-elected with a majority government 4 years later, thereby becoming the first Canadian Prime Minister in 35 years to win successive majority governments and the first Conservative Prime Minister to do so in 100 years. He resigned in June 1993 after serving almost 9 years as Prime Minister of our great nation. His government introduced bold new initiatives such as the Canada-US Free Trade Agreement, the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, and the Canada-US Acid Rain Treaty. Prime Minister Mulroney's government also introduced a series of privatizations, a low inflation policy, historic tax reform, extensive deregulation, and expenditure production policies, which continue to be the basis of Canada's impressive economics performance today. Mr. Mulroney also served as co-chairman of the United Nations World Summit for Children, and his government played leading roles in the Gulf War, the creation of Le Sommet de la Francophonie, and the campaign against apartheid in South Africa. Mr. Mulroney was born in Baie-Comeau, Quebec in 1939 as one of 6 children, where his father, Benedict, was an electrician at the Quebec North Shore Paper Company. Mr. Mulroney graduated from St. Thomas College High School in Chatham, New Brunswick, received his honors undergraduate degree from St. Francis Xavier University in Antigonish, Nova Scotia, and a law degree from Université Laval in Quebec City. In 1973, he married Mila Pivnicki, and they have 4 children, Caroline, Benedict, Mark, and Nicholas. He practiced law in Montreal and served as president of the Iron Ore Company of Canada before entering politics by becoming party leader and leader of the official opposition in 1983. He was re-elected to the House of Commons in 1984 and again in 1988. Upon resigning, Mr. Mulroney rejoined the Montreal office of law firm Norton Rose Fulbright as a senior partner. He is chairman of the board of directors of Quebecor Inc., serves as a director of the Blackstone Group LP, and of Wyndham Worldwide Corporation. He also serves as chairman of the International Advisory Board of Barrick Gold Corporation and is a member of the advisory group of Lion Capital LLP. Mr. Mulroney is a trustee of the Montreal Heart Institute Foundation and the International Advisory Board of HEC Montreal. Mr. Mulroney has been awarded Canada's highest honor, Companion of the Order of Canada, and has been made a Grand Officer of the Ordre National du Québec. He has also received the highest recognition from governments in Haiti, the Ukraine, Japan, South Africa, and France for his leadership in matters vital to those countries. Mr. Mulroney has also received honorary degrees and awards from universities and other governments, both here at home and abroad. In 2000, the McGill University North American Studies Institute determined that Mr. Mulroney had the best economic record of any prime minister since World War II. In 2003, the Institute for Research in Public Policy placed Mr. Mulroney second in a ranking of the best prime ministers in the prior 50 years. In 2006, a panel of leading environmentalist groups determined that Mr. Mulroney was the greenest prime minister in Canadian history. In 2007, Mr. Mulroney's autobiography, Memoirs, became Canada's #1 national bestseller and was described as by the Ottawa Citizen as the finest and most comprehensive memoir written by any prime minister in Canadian history. In 2009, a survey conducted by the Hill Times selected Mr. Mulroney as the most admired former Prime Minister of Canada. On a personal note, as someone who works in a global bank, I witness to this day the positive impact Mr. Mulroney's work on free trade has had on Canadian corporations and the Canadian economy. Additionally, as a fellow alumnus of St. Francis Xavier University, where he has provided tireless support, I applaud his dedication to youth and education, his determined work to ensure young Canadians are equipped to compete in a global economy. Mr. Mulroney's dedication to our country is nothing short of inspiring, and we are indeed fortunate to have him with us here today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Right Honorable Brian Mulroney.
Well, I want to thank you, Jamie, for that introduction. I'm going to be making a few more speeches in the next couple of days. Would you be free to introduce me? I'm going to disrupt my sequence here to say, I'll be talking later on really about leadership for the people of Yes, but I'm going to disrupt the sequence because Mike Harris has to get a plane, and I want to say a word about him and the others at the table. Bill Clinton once said that the leadership is the capacity to look around the corner of history just a little bit. Well, we have three people at this table right here who did precisely that. David Peterson led his party to an unexpected and huge victory in 1985, I think, which broke the back of the conservative hegemony in Ontario for 40 years. And why that was leadership and why that was such a huge accomplishment is that countries like Canada cannot survive without the oxygen that comes from all alternation of governments. You need new governments, you need new people, you need a new view on life. And David went into the history books big time when he managed that very significant accomplishment. Mike Harris, years later, did the reverse. He won again in unexpected times and terms. And he set Ontario on a remarkably different and new and productive course. And people today still refer to the Harris years as tough ones, but absolutely essential for the building of a modern Ontario. And then there's Peter MacKay. People say Stephen Harper united the Conservative Party. Wrong. You can't unite the party by yourself. Stephen Harper was leading a party that emanated from the Reform that couldn't get elected dog catcher across Canada. And what he figured out is that if he could persuade Peter MacKay, who had the brand, the Progressive Conservative brand, to join him, then we had a chance, no guarantee, of winning an election. And then again, providing Canada with an option. And so Peter, with great courage and selflessness, arranged for this new Conservative Party to be born, and which, of course, transformed Canada as well. And it provided Canadians, whether you like it or not, it provided us all with an option that didn't. We knew that we couldn't win anything with a party that couldn't get elected with a member of parliament east of the Manitoba border. And he changed that with an act of selfless leadership. And so I know that Mike has to run, and I wanted to say that before I say anything else, because, ladies and gentlemen, this is all about the youth. What does leadership look like? What does real leadership look like? There are 3 of them right at that table right now who are genuine leaders. Enjoy the flight, Mike. Yeah. God, I hate it when somebody interrupts my speech like that. Well, when I see, when I see a crowd like this and the enthusiasm and so on, one thought comes to mind, just one. Come back. Is it too late? And then I read the papers not so long ago, and a guy who was in office, who was Prime Minister of Malaysia when I was Prime Minister, Mahathir, by God, he became leader of his party again, and he got re-elected Prime Minister of Malaysia at 92. What the hell? I'm just in my 70s. Lots of time. I could even run on the slogan, "Give youth a chance." In fact, I can remember watching television one day with Mila in Montreal, and one of my successors was on a trip to Israel, and only my deep sense of Christian charity prevents me from mentioning his name. But he was at a press conference in Jerusalem, and one of them said, "Well, Prime Minister, what's the Canadian position on the Israeli-Palestinian dispute?" And our esteemed Prime Minister said, "I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know if I'm in North, South, East, or West Jerusalem." So I'm watching television, Mila's sitting here. I said, honey, this guy's so bad. I'm going to get myself re-elected leader of the party, and I may become Prime Minister again. There was total silence. So I turned around and I said, "Did you hear what I said, dear?" And Mila said, "Yes, I did." I said, what do you think? He said, I think it's a wonderful idea. And I know your new wife is really going to love the experience. Well, you know, as all of the elected leaders can tell you, strange things happen when you retire after you've been in office for a long time. In my case, the first trip that I took as former Prime Minister was from Montreal to Orlando for a board meeting. And the plane got diverted in a major snowstorm to Detroit, which was the home of Northwest Airlines at the time. And I got off the plane, and there was a lady there from VIP Services who said, Prime Minister, you go right over there and get on that electric cart, and it'll take you to the far end of the airport where you're going to make a connecting flight for Orlando. I said, thank you very much, and I start to head over to the cart, which is being guarded by a young guy about 18 years of age, 6'3", 285 pounds. And just as I was about to arrive, a woman who had been on the plane with me was right behind me in the lineup, and she said, I have to have that cart right now. And the kid says, you cannot have that cart. She said, why not? I said, this cart is reserved for the former dictator from Canada. How quickly they forget. Well, I guess as everybody knows, you know, say, well, why do you do this stuff in politics anyway? Well, do you miss anything about it? Well, no, I guess, yeah, I miss the adulation. Those wonderful, wonderful eulogies every day in the Toronto Star, and the mellifluous tones of the CBC supporting me. I mean, I got so used to it, you know, you kind of miss it. But for gratitude, it's the recognition you get. So a guy from Red Deer, well, 3 months after I leave, a guy from Red Deer shows up at 24 Sussex. And you know the little house that's there on the grounds of 24 Sussex for the RCMP officers who guard the Prime Minister and his family. And he goes up to him and he says, I'd like to see Prime Minister Mulroney. And the RCMP guy says, well, I'm sorry, Brian Mulroney's no longer Prime Minister. I said, oh, okay. Leaves, comes back. The same guy comes back the next day and he said, I'd like to see Prime Minister Mulroney. He said, no. He said, Brian Mulroney's no longer Prime Minister. Well, by God, the same guy comes back the next day. And he says, I want to see Prime Minister Mulroney. He said, look, I've told you, Brian Mulroney is no longer Prime Minister. What is it about this that you don't understand? And he said, no, I understand it all right. I just enjoy hearing it. Nicholas Soames, who was the Prime Minister Churchill's grandson, himself a cabinet minister in London, told me of the time that Churchill, who was then old and failing, was invited by President Eisenhower to come to Bermuda to receive the highest honor that the President of the United States could award, which is the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So Churchill agreed to it, and Eisenhower called the senior senator from North Carolina, who was Churchill's biggest fan, and said, Charlie, this is a high honor, and I've selected you to do it. I'm going to take everybody down in Air Force One. We're going to have a big party for Churchill in Bermuda, and I'm going to give him the honor, and you... I thought you'd play When Irish Eyes Are Smiling for me. And he said, you are going to introduce him, and you get 3 minutes. Not a second more. Churchill is old, he's tired, and it's 3 minutes, period. And he said, well, fine, I'd be honored. This is the greatest honor of my life, to meet Churchill and to do it. So down he comes, they all show up. Churchill is there. Dinner's over. Up gets Charlie, the senator from North Carolina, and he delivers a wonderful little tribute to Churchill in 3 minutes. And then he says, Prime Minister, Churchill, you may not know this, but the greatest university in the English-speaking world is not Oxford or Cambridge. It's Yale University, from which I graduated. Let me tell you a little bit about Yale. Y is for youth, and he goes on for 10 minutes. A is for ambition, another 10 minutes. L is for learning, another 10 minutes. E is for executive skills that we learn. That's the story, Prime Minister of Yale. And finally he sits down and Churchill staggers up to the podium and he says, Senator, I want to thank you for your kind words about me. But most of all, I want to thank you on behalf of everybody for the very fascinating information you gave us about Yale. And all I can tell you, Senator, is this. It's a damn good thing that you didn't graduate from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Well, let's talk a little bit about what Tim has asked me here to do. And Tim is an old friend of mine, as is his mother and family. And he did a fabulous job at St. FX. That's where he had been there, but that's where I met him. And we started off looking for some money, and we wound up, I have to correct the MC. You said we wound up with $70 million. We wound up with $106 million. So, and Tim was one of the people right at my place and came to see me in Palm Beach to design this campaign and to get it going. And he did a tremendous job there, and he's doing a tremendous job here at Yes, which is the most important thing. And so I want to thank Tim for his friendship and his support and the tremendous contribution that he continues to make to Canada's youth, as he did at the university, and he does now in the GTA and elsewhere. Congratulations, Tim. It's a wonderful accomplishment. He wouldn't ever have made it without his mother, though, I can tell you that, who's a real firecracker and a delight. Well, look, the fundamental goal of government is to make a better world, a world that is safe from war and safe for democracy, a world that is free from deprivation and free from degradation. For 40 years, the United States and the Soviet Union were the world's two superpowers, the leaders of the West and the East, of NATO and the Warsaw Pact, the keepers, in President Kennedy's immortal words, of a hard and a bitter peace. And then in 1985, there came to power in the Kremlin a man named Mikhail Gorbachev, who questioned the assumptions of the Soviet system, ended the arms race and ultimately the Cold War, disbanded the East Bloc, the Warsaw Pact, and finally, the tyranny of the Soviet Federation itself. I can remember sitting across a conference table in the Kremlin from him just hours after he became leader in March of 1985. And I have to tell you, I never thought that day that all would happen. There he was, flanked by the president of the USSR, Andrei Gromyko. You remember warm, cuddly, affectionate Andrei Gromyko. Well, this new leader spoke to me with confidence of the future, but gave precious few indications of the convulsive changes he was about to unleash, so profound, as it turned out, that he and his administration and his federation would be consumed by them. For Canada and the United States, the post-Cold War world offered unique opportunities and daunting challenges. We begin from a common heritage of democratic traditions and a common defense of liberty. There are reminders of that from the trenches of one war to the beaches of the next. places inscribed in the history of valor where Canadians and Americans have fought together and where Canadians and Americans have died together in the defense of freedom. And because we and our allies have remained true to those values and had the courage and the strength to defend them in World War I and II and NATO and Korea and the Gulf and Afghanistan and elsewhere, within the last 30 years, the Berlin Wall fell and Germany was reunited. A trade unionist from Gdansk, an electrician like my father, became president of Poland, and a dissident poet sat in the castle in Prague as communist regimes tumbled like dominoes across Central and Eastern Europe. And in the Second Russian Revolution, the people of Moscow made a human wall around their parliament, and Soviet tanks that had crushed every single stirring of liberty for 70 years, now, for the first time, dared not cross. Strong political leadership at that time ensured that we came safely through the worst, as President Reagan said to the British Parliament. In retrospect, when you look at it after so many years, what happened was rather simple. Achievement occurs when challenge meets leadership. Some years ago, the legendary New York Times columnist Scotty Reston came to have lunch with me at 24 Sussex. And after an impressive tour d'horizon, Mr. Reston said, "You know, Prime Minister, for the last 25 years, I have opposed every single policy that your friend Ronald Reagan has introduced." And during that same period, Ronald Reagan was twice elected governor of California and twice elected president of the United States. This self-deprecatory observation I thought memorable because of its infrequency in the New York Times, was delivered somewhat ruefully, as if Mr. Reston were perplexed by his own admission. But to so wise an observer as Reston, the answer surely should have been very clear. It's called leadership. That ineffable and sometimes magical qualities that sets some men and women apart so that millions will follow them as they conjure up new visions and invite their countrymen to dream big and exciting dreams. In his seminal work on leadership, James McGregor Burns segregates transactional from transformational leadership. He writes that it is the transforming leader who raises the level of human conduct of both leader and led, and who responds to fundamental hopes and expectations, and who may transcend and even seek to reconstruct the political system rather than simply operate within it. You know, many people suggest that the great inexorable currents of history themselves, and not individual leaders, seal our fate. In my judgment, however, Carlyle was on target when he said that the right man or the right woman in the right place at the right time can completely change the course of history. I believe that to be true because I was there to see it happen. I'll tell you right now, you could not have sit around a G7 table or a NATO table with Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan and George Bush and François Mitterrand and Helmut Kohl and Yasunakis. You couldn't sit around and watch them and listen to them without realizing that big change was in the air, and it was going to be brought about not by somebody writing in a history book, but by the leadership that I saw around that table. In a brilliant address delivered some years ago in Toronto, and I think David Peterson had something to do with his appearance at the time, Ted Sorensen, who became a very good friend of mine over the years because of our common work together for Mandela. Ted Sorensen, himself a skilled observer of powerful leaders, as special counsel to Presidents Kennedy and Johnson, he said here in Toronto, "Once in office, those who wish to stand up and stand out must leave something enduring behind. must build new institutions, not new images. They must look to the next generation, not merely the next election. They must talk in terms of fundamental values and not merely costs. They must appeal to our hopes as well as our needs, to what we long to be and to what we know is right. That, he said, that is leadership. Well, the impact of significant public policy decisions is often unclear in the early years. It sometimes takes a considerable period, frequently decades, before the full consequences of an important initiative becomes apparent. I mean, think back to free trade. At one point in time in the free trade election, my support was down to members of my immediate family. And I can remember calling my mother, and she put me on hold. And I was paying for the call. So it takes time for some of these significant initiatives to work through. As Reinhold Niebuhr reminded us, nothing worth doing is completed in our lifetime. Therefore, we must be saved by hope. And nothing fine or beautiful or good makes complete sense in any immediate context of history, and therefore, we must be saved by faith. It is in this perspective that great and controversial questions of public policy must be considered. Time is the ally of leaders who place the defense of principle ahead of the pursuit of popularity. And history has little time for the marginal roles played by the carpers and the complainers, and less for their opinions. History tends to focus on the builders, the deciders, the leaders in education, healthcare, science, business, the arts, as well as politics, because, as in this room, they are the men and women whose contributions have and will shape the future of our country. Teddy Roosevelt had courageous leaders in mind when he spoke 70 years ago at La Sorbonne, and in a quote that every politician of any substance knows and loves, in which he said, "It's not the critic," and remember this for the young people who are here. Roosevelt said, "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who spends himself in a worthy cause, and who, at the best, knows in the end the triumphs of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat." Canada's greatest Prime Minister, Sir John A. Macdonald, died in 1891. No more eloquent tribute to Macdonald was ever spoken than that delivered to a hushed House of Commons by his legendary opponent, Liberal leader Sir Wilfrid Laurier. Laurier said that when considering the supreme art of governing men, Sir John Macdonald was gifted as few men in any land or any age were gifted. All the prime ministers of Canada who have followed, including this one, have stood in Macdonald's shadow. Like the giants of the world stage, and I've just referred to a few of them, Macdonald thought big and long-term. Depend on it, he once said. The long game is the true one. Like other privileged nations, Canada is often extremely resistant to change. Deep and important structural changes are indispensable, however, to maintain a growing economy and ensure the flourishing of peace and liberty, and they can only be brought about by a firm expression of political will. President Truman said, "There are no great men. There are only ordinary men who rise to meet great challenges. Well, we will all encounter moments of doubt and difficulty. This is all the more true for men and women in public life who must live out their time on the front pages of the daily newspapers and the nightly TV news. It becomes even more painful in moments of sadness or failure. For my part, I had to deal with matters ranging from the Canada-US Free Trade Agreement to NAFTA, to the Canada-US Acid Rain Treaty, to the Meech Lake Accord, to Charlottetown, to tax reform and the GST, to a wave of privatizations and deregulation, the first Gulf War, the long and difficult struggle and fight on behalf of Nelson Mandela and others. We won some and we lost some, but we fought strongly for all of them. Now, looking back over those years, I can remember the accomplishments and the setbacks. I can recall the splendor of the view from the highest mountaintop and the sorrow one feels in the valley of defeat. Life is an unending sequence of challenges from which no one, and I mean no one, emerges unscathed. Defeat is not something to fear, but surrender is something to reject. To all the young people who are here today who benefit from YES and those who help them, I say simply, never give up dreaming your big and exciting dreams, because someday they may just come true. As Maureen Dowd noted in the New York Times some years ago, in a nation ruled by polls and ratings, where even newspapers hire focus groups to see what kind of news the readers want, we are losing sight of something we should have learned as teenagers. Just because something is popular doesn't mean it's right. In fact, transforming leadership, leadership that makes a significant difference in the life of a nation, recognizes that political capital is acquired to be spent in great causes for one's country. And this is precisely such a time. Prime ministers are not chosen to seek popularity. They're chosen to provide leadership. There are times when voters must be told not what they want to hear, but what they have to know. And what they have to know is a quotation from the book of Proverbs inscribed on the Peace Tower in Ottawa, where there is no vision, the people perish. Leaders must have vision, and they must find the courage to fight for the policies that will give that vision life. Leaders must govern not for easy headlines in 10 days, but for a better Canada in 10 years. And they must be ready in this society of ours to endure the attacks that often accompany profound or controversial change while they await the distant and compelling sounds of a verdict that only history and a more reflective nation can render in the fullness of time. Over 25 years ago, the Kennedy Library Foundation saluted President Gerald Ford with the Profiles in Courage Award for pardoning Richard Nixon. I remember having lunch at Vail with Mila and me, with Jerry and Betty Ford, and Mila said to Jerry, "Did you have any idea of how unpopular it was going to be to pardon Nixon?" And he said, "Of course I did, Mila. But had I not done it, with the President of the United States in the criminal box in Washington, we would have been paralyzed for 3 years. And we had to move on with the state. And that's why I pardoned him." And it was an historic decision, deeply unpopular for Mr. Ford at the time, but as it turned out, right for America. In an insightful essay, David Gergen, you see him on the tube all the time, David, he's never going to die. He's about 110, and he's still giving us his opinions. That's something I think I'll do when I get to be 100. David Gergen, counselor to 4 presidents, wrote that in saluting President Ford for his courage in making the tough decision, the trustees of the Kennedy Library were actually doing much more. He wrote, "They are telling leaders everywhere to pay less attention to daily polls and more attention to their inner voices. Give up this slavish obedience to popular opinion so embedded in politics today, and take up the standard of what's right, even when it threatens one's political survival. As Jerry Ford found, you may be condemned by millions, but one day, perhaps a quarter century later, you will win an honored place in history." So I commend to all our leaders, and particularly to the young people who are here today, the humility and wisdom found in the words of Judge Learned Hand when he welcomed immigrants to America about 70 years ago down on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Catholics and Protestants and Jews and Muslims from all across the world, mostly Central and Eastern Europe, and they were gathered there at a citizenship ceremony. And Judge Learned Hand, the greatest American jurist who was never appointed to the United States Supreme Court, told them about the spirit of liberty he hoped they would find in their new country. His words have universal reach. They apply to us all and should guide the ambitions of young Canadians, those in the room today as well, thinking about high office one day. He defined the spirit of liberty this way. He said, "The spirit of liberty is the spirit that is not too sure that it is right. The spirit of liberty seeks to understand the minds of other men and other women. The spirit of liberty weighs their interests alongside its own without bias. The spirit of liberty knows that not even a sparrow falls to earth unheeded. And the spirit of liberty is the spirit of him who near 2,000 years ago taught mankind a lesson that it has never quite learned, but never quite forgotten. That there may be a kingdom where the least shall be heard and considered side by side with the greatest. From the bloodied sands of Afghanistan to the pristine snows and surging waters of the high Arctic, and everything in between, the Canada of 50 years from now will be defined by the leadership we are given today. And if all of us remember that freedom and liberty are the very pillars of our national democracy, we can collectively make a contribution to the well-being of mankind that will bring honor to Canada and peace and prosperity to all her citizens. In the Old Testament, it is written that young men have visions and old men dream dreams. Well, a great nation like Canada needs both, deserves both. The visions and the dreams combined will make for us, with leadership of the kind I'm trying to articulate today, those visions and dreams will ensure us that our beloved Canada, 151 years old today, will survive and flourish and prosper and become the image for the world that Churchill talked about 70 years ago in the House of Commons. This will be an example, as he said, for all mankind. So I thank you, Tim, for your contribution to helping this, and I thank you all for supporting us the way you've done over the years. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, the Right Honorable Brian Mulroney. Thank you very much for that speech. A lot of inspiration there for all of the young leaders in the room. A lot of history in there for the young leaders in the room who may not have a memory as deep and as far as Mr. Mulroney's. But as always, it's great to hear his humor and his candor as he talks about those good old times. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of today's lunch. I want to thank you all once again for being here and celebrating 50 years of Yes. This event and this organization celebrates a birthday with a few people. Celine Dion also was born the same year that, I mean, I don't know if that necessarily makes a difference to your support of Yes, but to Tim Lang and to all of the volunteers here who have made Yes such a success over the last few years, let's hear it for all of them and all of their hard work and effort. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for our young award recipients who said yes to Yes. And thank you once again to everybody in the room for your time, your effort, and your contributions that have made Yes so successful over these past 50 years. And thank you for being with us for the next 50 years as well. We hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we hope that wonderful chicken carries you to dinner at least. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great day.